This video will discuss the key characteristics of prokaryotic and eukaryotic cells, and also discuss a little bit of the cell theory. It's hard to discuss prokaryotic and eukaryotic cells without talking about the cell theory and some of the similarities that all cells have in common. The cell theory states that the cell is the basic unit of life. New cells come from existing cells, and all living things are composed of one or more cells. The first part of the cell theory stated that cells are the basic unit of life. This means that cells are the smallest living thing. Therefore, since cells are living things, they're eventually going to die. This brings us to the second part of the cell theory. We get new cells from old cells. In order to prevent us from running out of cells, since cells eventually do die, sometime in its lifespan, a cell is going to replicate and make more copies of itself. This is important because all living things are composed of cells. A fancy way of saying living things is biotic factors, and the opposite of that, non-living, would be abiotic factors. Take a look at the picture below. If I was to ask you to point out the biotic factors or living things, you could tell me the fish and the grass. They're made of cells because these are living things. However, the abiotic factors, the non-living things such as the water and rocks, are not made of cells. So once again, the third part of the cell theory and last part states that all living things are made of cells. In addition to the cell theory, there are structures that you'll find in any cell. Regardless what type of cell it is, you will always be able to find a cell membrane, or what some will call a plasma membrane. Regardless what kind of cell it is, it will always have cytoplasm. You will always be able to find ribosomes, and you will always be able to find genetic material. Now, in some kinds of cells, you'll find this genetic material or DNA in the nucleus. In others, it's just floating around in the cytoplasm. But we'll talk more about that when we get into the different types of cells. The good news is there are only two types of cells. A cell is either prokaryotic or eukaryotic. That's it. There's no other type of cell other than prokaryotes and eukaryotes. Prokaryotic cells do not have a nucleus or membrane-bound organelles. They're always unicellular, which means they're just one cell. And the only example of an organism that is made of prokaryotic cells is bacteria. Now take a look at the picture. You notice the word nucleode highlighted. That's because, like I said earlier, prokaryotic cells do not have a nucleus. So if a cell has a nucleoid, do not treat it as a nucleus. That is not the same as a nucleus. It's not the same as a nucleolus or nuclear membrane. A nucleoid is its own thing, and it's only found in prokaryotic cells. On the other hand, eukaryotic cells, they do have a nucleus. They do have membrane-bound organelles. They can be both unicellular and multicellular. And examples of organisms that are made of eukaryotic cells include plants, animals, fungi, and protists. If you take a look at the picture in the bottom left, you'll notice all those organisms are eukaryotics. Now, sometimes instead of saying nucleus, you might hear the word nucleolus or nuclear membrane. These are structures you only find around a nucleus. So if a cell has a nuclear membrane or a nucleolus, it is eukaryotic. However, if it has a nucleoid, it's prokaryotic. Comparing prokaryotics next to eukaryotics, you see that they're opposite in a lot of ways. For example, prokaryotics have no nucleus. Eukaryotics do have a nucleus. Prokaryotic have no membrane-bound organelles. Eukaryotics do have membrane-bound organelles. Prokaryotics are unicellular only. Eukaryotics are unicellular and multicellular. The only example of prokaryotes is bacteria. Anything else, animal, a plant, fungi, protist, it's going to be eukaryotic. Thank you for your time. I hope that you found this video helpful. If you did, please like and subscribe so we can continue making you more content.